Last week, after I finished this talk, I had a brief exchange with people in the room here, and I said something which seemed relatively provocative, which is that you've got to get your act together. You have to get yourself fixed, made whole, if you will. Rudi used to say, becoming a whole person is not the goal of a spiritual life, it's the beginning. Now there are whole circles of non-dualistic teaching that say there's nothing to fix, you're not broken. And in the deepest sense of the word, of course, that's true. There is the infinite, eternal, bless you, unbreakable reality of your true self. And then there is the manifestation of you, which is, as each of you know very clearly, not completely functional. There's a lot of our nature which is at odds with what we would like to be. And a lot of those struggles that we have, a lot of the leakage that we have, a lot of the inconsistency, a lot of the laziness, a lot of the excuses and doubts and fears that we have are all products of our incompletion. That we really haven't taken the responsibility of making our lives whole. And again, quoting Rudi, that's the beginning of a spiritual life, not the end. So, I deal with students I have now for 40-some years, and I've watched this struggle and how it manifests. And what I see more than anything, over the course of decades, is what I would call excuses. Why I can't be more whole. Why it's too hard. Why my parents did this to me. Why that happened. Why I didn't get. Why this failed. Why I made this mistake. I mean, on and on and on. Reasons not to be a whole person. And people come to this class, and some people come for a very long time, and they don't do the work. They come and they sit like they go to church, and they think, if I go to church every Sunday, I'll be fine. Well, yeah, look, there's some truth to that. There is some truth to it. But are you fine? Are you feeling happy and content with your life? Do you need to feel happy and content with your life? Are your excuses grounded in some truth that's beyond fixing? Those are really important questions. What do you do? What do you do with this, what is for many people profound discomfort? Well, I know a lot of you decide, I will meditate. That will help. It'll help with the struggle, with the stress, with the unhappiness, with the incompletion, with the strange hope and promise that you will get made happy, whole, comfortable, and not ill at ease with your life. And the truth is, it will help with that. But not exactly in the way you think. You will not attain permanent bliss. You will not attain permanent anything. And I'll tell you why. Because there's no permanence. Ever. Everything you get will fall away. What may happen, if you're lucky, is that you will learn to accept and embrace impermanence. You'll go, it's going to fall away, so I don't have to get it. But that's not going to work either. Trying to avoid the journey is not the answer. You're in it. You are in this. and it has some driving mechanism which moves you toward perfecting who you are. Or let's put it more simply, becoming who you are. Yes, who you are may not be a completely happy, realized human being. But once you realize that, you're much closer to realization than trying to get to something that never seems to be attainable. The real attainment is, in a sense, what Rudi calls letting go and surrender, but true surrender. The serenity prayer helped me to find the serenity to change what I can, accept what I can't, and know the difference. Really important. So, how do we go about making ourselves whole? How do we go about becoming who we are meant to be? Finding strength, giving up our doubts, giving up our excuses. How do we go about this? Well, the approach of meditation, which is a really reasonable thing to do, is really interesting because it allows you to sit still and open to who you are, to see who you are, to know who you are. That's a wonderful approach to making it work. Sit down and get quiet. Look inside. There are a lot of meditations. Some of them tell you basically, just watch. Why not? Mindfulness, meditation. Some tell you focus on a mantra or on your breath. Anything to keep you distracted from your general mind thoughts. And why do you want to be distracted from your mind? Because your mind is like an out-of-control computer. And it's going all the time. And we have enormous investment in that mind activity. And that mind activity is wildly distracting. It's the source of the struggle, the source of your unhappiness and your discomfort, because it pulls you in every direction, and you don't seem to be able to not go wherever it takes you. Learning to let go of your mind is really part of the mindful meditation experience, but the Rudi experience is very much a dynamic, transformative experience that comes in the meditative process. It's very chakra-centered, and it involves a deep breathing exercise, which I find to be important along the way. Also something to ultimately be free of, or to use simply as an occasional tool. But let me go into the core idea of this transformative meditation. It's also about sitting still, but it also has focal points. And these focal points are diagnostic tools, and really important to understand who you are, what you are, what's working and what's not working. So if you want to make yourself whole, fix yourself, make this outer life conform to something that you know deep inside it could be, you need to look at these spaces, and you need to be analytical in a way, not mentally, but by observation, experientially, knowing when these things are open and what they reveal when they open. And in the introductory class, I talk about these chakras very importantly, and I will run you through it very simply right now. There's the one at the top of your head that opens you up to the infinite, if you will. It is the space of the fontanelle, and it opens you up. As a child, as an infant, you're completely open, and then as you commit to your bodily experience, it closes down. And then you're inside for the rest of your life. As I often say, trying to figure out how to get back out. But this is a doorway out. Touching this space really will help you feel what is beyond. What is beyond you. It also helps you feel what is within you, and it helps you to feel the beyond and the within as a continuity, as a continuum of being. The one called the third eye in the middle of your forehead is really about your mind. In the simplest worldly sense, either you have an open mind or a closed mind. Open minds see clearly intellectually. They see the world. Closed minds see very little. As I described in the introductory class, these chakras open into the world and they root into you, and therefore they have plant-like nature. And the root system tends to mirror the outer growth. Having a clarity about the world intellectually, via information, knowledge, wisdom, which ultimately this reveals a kind of wisdom, allows you to make judgments that are based on experience, collective understanding, and it allows you to become wise. Throat chakra is really about the ego identity. I. I'm happy, I'm sad, I want, I don't want, what's wrong with me? All of that stuff comes from here. And this is a driving force in almost every human being. This is what keeps us going in the world. It is, in many cases, out of control. We spend a lot of time focusing on this chakra, trying to get our will expressed in life and expressed in our inner state. And it is very hard to get anything done here because the I that one speaks from is so shallow usually. But when it goes deep, it starts to become an expression of real honesty and truth. It expresses its true self. And when it goes really, really deep, it's the source of prayer. Essential. You know it when it's working because you have a dialogue with your best friends and they are open and free and lovely. And I also tell people when you go to a job interview and someone says, so tell me about you, this thing goes, that's your throat chakra. You need it to be open to function in the world, to function with others, to be honest with yourself. Heart chakra. Heart chakra is everything you know about love, everything you know about empathy, compassion for others, for yourself. And I tell most of my students, you're pretty good with others, not so good always with yourself. This chakra, when it opens deeply, and all these chakras, by the way, have a capacity to be shut and open. And when they open, there really is no end point to their opening. Kind of an extraordinary experience. When you first discover it, it does not stop at the edges of your body. It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And it starts to reveal the vastness of your own being. And the biggest part of that comes right out of the heart, and it is a loving embrace of what is. Externally, internally. This chakra is so rich with possibility, and it goes very, very deep. And as you go deep into the center of your chakra, you start to discover, first you discover many things, but one of the things you discover is a kind of what I call guidance system, a kind of knowing. It tells you this way, stay still, move now, do this, don't do that, be quiet, observe, move, act, don't act. It's directive all the time, and most people don't hear it. And as a result of not hearing or listening, they create bad movements generated by the mind, generated by the ego, and not conducive to what's really happening inside, and they create consequence, which is called karma. And karma, as we all know, is stuff you got to pay off. There's consequence to your actions. And misguided actions, actions without a directive, without something inside, a navigational system, can get you thrown into terrible circumstance. So finding this chakra is really important. Navel chakra, gut chakra, that's the space of power, empowerment, generation, making things happen, moving into the world. Really crucial chakra. And it is the transformative space. It builds life. It manifests the house I'm sitting in. It manifests the streets we drive on, the cars we sit in. This chakra is the maker of stuff, and it has to work. And in many people, it's just invisible. They have all the wishes, which I think come from mind, and the desires, which come from heart, but they don't have the transformative need that comes from the gut to do. And so they have so many wonderful intentions, but they don't have any achievement. Achievement comes from your gut. And if you want to be a whole person, you've got to take the mind and the heart and the gut and make them all work so you build the life you want. Now, sometimes that life will be at odds with you and you won't get it, but it won't be for lack of trying, and you will feel very ennobled by the effort. You don't always get what you want, but thanks to the Rolling Stones, you always get what you need. Always. Always. And you need to understand that. Deep in here, this is where it comes from. Then you get the sex chakra, which is about recreation and renewal and revival and rebirth and all of that stuff. If you don't have that, you can't deal with one of the fundamental elements of human experience, which is death and rebirth. And death and rebirth is ongoing in the spiritual experience. It's ongoing. Part of you is always falling away. Just like leaves off the tree. There's a time where the sap goes back into the ground and the poor tree sits there going, oh, what's happening? And the next thing you know, life comes back and the tree is bigger than it was before, the leaves come back, and it's powerful. Sometimes in spiritual work you actually have to do what gardeners do, which is prune bushes and trees so they grow bigger and more beautiful. But that death process is horrible, uncomfortable, miserable, and you're always deeply unconscious when it's happening. Part of the death process is that you get unconscious. And you have to be willing at that point to be very still. Rudi would say, eat a Hershey bar. Treat yourself well. You're going to be at the bottom of the pecking order. Everything's going to pick on you. You have to get really quiet and say, okay. It won't last. It never lasts. Because rebirth follows. Death and rebirth are the cycle of existence. You have to allow yourself to go through them. And finally, the base of the spine, tip of the coccyx bone, there is the seat of Kundalini. Kundalini is uprising energy. Uprising energy. It carries you up into your head and out into the universe, or it marinates your head, or it overflows, and it begins to create this sense of movement between all the chakras, a kind of continuity, a linkage, if you will. It is the thing that integrates and makes you whole. So when all of this energy is moving through all of these open chakras, you become you. And what I experience when I sit with people is where the opening is failing to happen. It's not going on. The people whose minds are not open, whose hearts are not open, whose gut is not there. Or in varying moments, it's sometimes the heart's open and the head closes, then the head opens and the heart opens and everything's in alignment, then it goes away. A lot of misdiagnosis for people because they think, oh, I'm so open, and then they get lost in their thinking and they're not open. And what happens really is you're trying to get all of these chakras to be open and functioning, to allow them to be open. You can try to make them open, but that won't work. Try pulling a flower open in the morning. Watch what happens. The sun comes up in the morning and the flower goes, oh. Consciousness opens your chakras. Pay attention to your chakras and they go, oh, oh, oh. And you become open. And you function. You function as a person. You function as a whole person. And it's the best way to live. I learned something today in class which is really powerful for me in terms of dealing with chakras. And it became just a change in the pronoun. It's not your chakra or my chakra. When I sit, I'm working with our chakra or chakras. It's not yours and mine. The amazing thing about the chakras are that they are the connecting point to the universal. They are that which binds us to one another. They are where we meet. When my heart chakra is open and your heart chakra is open, there is no differentiation. It's one chakra. We are open to our self, the collective singular self. This is the opening. When we open our chakras deeply, we are really connected to one another. Connected over the disconnect of otherness that most people experience. The ego-minded, me or mine, that I want what I want, you can't have what you want if it takes away from what I want. All of that starts to go away, and you start to feel this extraordinary sense of working with others as though they are, which is in truth, in the end, you. You're working with you. You're functioning together. It's a collaborative reality. It is a singular reality, and we get to share that. And when people are sitting together with open chakras, they have an exquisite exchange. The problem is, I would go 98% of people listening to this talk, if whoever, I don't know what chakras are. Certainly in the world, there are not many people who have any idea what chakras are. I mean, they know what an open mind is and an open heart is and what it means to be, driven and willful in the world and empowered, if you will. People know that. They don't know the names of these spaces. But these are real spaces that you can, in the act of absolute silence and stillness, go deeply into, dive into, feel, explore, let them expand. Nityananda, Rudi's teacher, said, go into your heart and roam. Roam. What does that mean? It's not like you just go in there and sit in a closet. You roam. It's big. It's big. It's huge. The vastness of your inner life is way beyond what you experience in the outer. Or if nothing else, let's say they're equal. The vastness of the universe is equal to the vastness of your own heart. It's a remarkable space. These are all remarkable spaces. Becoming a whole person means that you accept the responsibility and the demand, if you will, of being a person. Very few people do this. And part of the enormity of discomfort, struggle, unhappiness, drama that exists in the world is because we're given this enormous opportunity, this gift of life, and misusing it. The value of meditating and sitting every day. Rudi told me you've got to sit every day for the rest of your life. He told me that first day I met him. Every day, which is a huge, huge directive. And I went, okay. And in my entire meditative life, I never missed a 24-hour period. Here's the value in that. I really got to watch these chakras in acceptance and in battlement. When they would want to open and when they wouldn't want to open. I got to watch what happens when you fight the world and when you embrace the world. When you fight yourself and embrace yourself. I got to watch all that, and I got to understand what an amazing opportunity being alive is. And then there comes this moment after years and years of practice, not as a result of years of practice, but perhaps just as years and years of letting go of the bullshit of being Bruce, that suddenly Bruce was just finished. Poof! There was just this. Just this. And the thisness, or as I said last week, the suchness of this is so powerful. It's so vibrant. It's so real. And to arrive at this is exactly what Rudi said. Not the goal, the beginning of unbelievable, ongoing, probably eternal, infinite expansion or being. But I will tell you, one of the things that happens when you have that extraordinary awakening to this is that, in a way, you don't know anything. It's too big. There is no cognitive part of your being or your brain that can hold on to any of it. And it's so interesting because that will be challenged over and over and over. And what I have discovered with this unfolding that's going on is that liberation is not knowing. Not knowing. It's sort of just trusting. Trusting. Or just being, which involves trust. Just be. Scary at times, because it doesn't end well. You don't end up in a body. You don't end up with anything you're attached to. You don't end up with anyone you love. You don't end up with anything. You don't end up with a single idea that was important. It's all gone. It's all gone. It's already gone. It's already happened. And yet here we are, holding and squeezing and attached and dramatically caring about a life that's already over on some level. How does one learn to open to that, accept that, and be that? The only thing I can tell you, sitting quietly, opening these spaces, and looking and watching, and watch as your own personal self dissolves, and you become the self itself. And then you are everybody's self. And you watch it, and you know, not only did you not gain knowledge, you have gained the knowledge of not knowing. And in that, you are something that is unbelievably present in this moment. You have no idea what the next moment is, which is true for all of us. No idea. And yet we walk as though we know. Let me tell you, there's something extraordinary about walking without knowing. It's a heightened awareness. It's a deep and profound awareness of just, thy will be done. It's not always easy. It's sometimes scary. When it's scary, you get to look at parts of yourself that are still clutching, that are still kind of active, and you go, and then you do something which is something you've been practicing your whole life, is you let go of those. Just keep letting go. And then a moment occurs, and forgive me for bringing this right back into this moment in time in history, but you have a cultural moment where everything is blown up in a sense. History appears. Everything that you knew and believed and hoped for and wanted is gone. It's changed, transformed. There's something absolutely horrendous about that to the self that wants to have comfort and knowledge and some sense of where things are going. And there's something extraordinarily remarkable about watching it happen in a universal way where nobody knows together. Whew. What does that mean? I don't know, because I've never been there before. None of us have been there before. We're going to watch and see what it means. We're going to learn lessons together. It's going to put us in the hot seat. We have to take charge of our lives, of our days, of our minute-to-minute reality. We have to know, do I go on a march? Do I sit home and be quiet? Do I put my head in the sand? When do I act? When do I not act? I'll tell you, this right here knows what to do. If you get into the navigation system inside yourself, you will know what to do. This is how I behave. This is how I act. This is how I engage now. There's no directive from outside that's going to tell you. There's nothing out there that's going to say this is how it works. This is what you should do. And if there is, don't listen to it. Because it's not the thing you need to hear. The thing you need to hear is right here. Now that may be a reflection of something that's happening outside. You may read something that goes, oh, and then poof, this thing goes like that. And then you're in your inner-outer dialogue that's very real and very important. We are inner-outer beings. The deeper you go inside, the more you can be outside. The more you are part of the world, the more you can be really, truly dedicated to yourself. This is all what we have. This is the opportunity of becoming human in this very lifetime. I don't say enlightened, which is also an option, but becoming human. Wow. It's so rare. It's so rare. So many people leave this world with, what was that about? Or with enormous regret and unhappiness and loss and suffering. They've never once imagined that this wasn't permanent. In the face of everything that tells us it's not permanent. People actually walk around thinking, but I want it to be permanent. Good luck. Meditation and spiritual life is accepting the truth, whatever that may be, and not trying to codify it and give it to people in a bottle or give it to them in a pill or something and say, this is how it works, or even in a book. They're just trying to tell you, Figure it out. Get your life together. Your life, not somebody else's life. Your life. Get it to work. How do I get it to work? Find the map, if you will, the guidance system that tells you what to do. That's how you get it to work. If it says sit and meditate every day and you do it, something will happen. If it says get out there and get a degree in this or that and go to school and go back and learn something, do it. If it says sit still and be quiet and listen to your heart, do it. But don't be lazy and don't give me your excuses. I don't want any excuses from you. I don't care who you are or what you are. The most profoundly moving and noble human beings are the ones who have every excuse not to do and do. Those are the ones we celebrate in life. We don't celebrate the ones who achieve everything because they had it all. That's nice, good. But you celebrate the ones who don't have any ability and pull it off. Who they work the system, they work themselves, they go to the gym every day if you want to do it that way, they sit and meditate every day, they practice what they preach every day, they try to be kind to somebody every day. You know? I mean, you can walk around saying, yeah, but nobody's kind to me. Okay, there you go. Okay, you got your excuse. Live that life. But I'll tell you, it doesn't end well, and you don't become a whole person with that. You don't become a whole person because you don't do. You could become a whole person because you do. And this idea of fix yourself in the light of the people who teach but you're not broken is a real cop-out, potentially. In the deepest version of non-duality, yes, there's nothing to be fixed. There's nothing to be done. There's not even a you. But until you know that, there is work to be done. And I know that will separate me from a large part of that particular community, but I don't care. Because I know the goal of life, beyond being whole, is filled with the experiences of being, with the joy of it. You know, I'm having this wonderful thing. I'm 70, almost 74. And my mother died at 74. All of my mother's family, almost everybody, it was all the female line, and now it's partly the male line, have all died of strokes early on. And I'm very aware that could happen at any moment. And I'm living not in fear of it, but I'm living knowing. Rudi used to walk around with the sword of Damocles over his head. He always knew any moment could be the last. That's real. Any moment can be the last, and it's very valuable to know that it might be the last. So I've started doing this thing, which is, if not now, when? Which is a wonderful way to be. If not now, when? Do it now. Do it. Whatever it's going to be, which is turning into a number of things, one of which is I'm going to Disneyland tomorrow with my grandchildren and my son Josh and Evan, his wife Evan. And we're going to go there for 4 days, and I'm really happy about that. Blanche and I just made reservations to spend much of the month of March in India, because we've never been there before. I mean, I have. Blanche has never been there before. And I wasn't particularly desirous to go back to India. It's a real hard journey. And I was sitting with my son Ari and Blanche at dinner a few weeks ago, and I've always promised Blanche one day I will take her to India, but I never really wanted to go to India. For her birthday this last year, I gave her a tour book of India, thinking maybe, yeah, well, I'll take care of it. And then I was sitting with Josh, with Ari, and we were talking about all this, and I was giving him all the excuses in the world I had for not going to India. And he said, Dad, and this was the most potent, beautiful thing, he said, Dad, it's not about you. Boy, oh boy, that went right inside me. It's not about me. It's about Blanche. And the moment I realized that, and the moment I felt how much I wanted to give my wife, and how I had to put myself aside to really do that, the opening that took place was so exquisite for me, but also for Blanche and for us, for the singularity of us. And so I tell you this partly that there won't be probably very many classes in March. You'll have to forgive us, we'll be gone. But it's a really wonderful thing, and I haven't been there in 51 years. So for me, there is a kind of a strange kind of closure. I'm not sure I ever wanted that closure, but it will be an opportunity to look at all of this stuff that I've been living for the last 50 years, my spiritual journey, and what does it mean? And I'll report on it when I come back, because I think it will have some impact, and I think for Blanche it will be an extraordinary exposure to a world she has always wanted to see. But one of the interesting things that's happened for me, and I think I alluded to it the last few weeks, is I look at pictures of India now and all the people in pursuit of spirituality, and I go, what? It's like it's a false pursuit when it is dramatized into, wearing robes and covering yourself with the ashes of dead people and all the things that go on in India. But anybody who takes on the cloak of spirituality, for me, is basically announcing something that is ultimately unannounceable. The truth of it is not what you wear. The truth of it is what you are. And you don't have to sit on the banks of the Ganges, doing these pujas and doing all these things in order to have spiritual manifestation or to be spiritual. If anything, for me now, spirituality is an unspoken truth. All of the drama that surrounds it, all of the monasteries and meditations and all of that stuff, they're fine. But I'm telling you, ultimately, you don't have to step out of the mainstream of life to have a life. And a spiritual life, as Rudi put it for me really early on, he says, this is your spiritual life. This is it. You're living it right now. Use it well. And all I'm trying to tell you is, if you're going to use this as your spiritual life and not sit in the protection of a monastery or an ashram or a belief system that somebody's fed you from thousands of years ago, if you're going to live in a true spiritual life, find your guidance system. Find the guidance system, and I'm telling you, it's right here. And you'll find it if you sit still and let that expose itself to you over the course of time. It will announce its presence, it will open, it will unfold, it will flourish, it will expand, it will envelop, and it will introduce you to who you truly are. This is the ride we're on. This is the journey. This is what it's about. Get your act together. Fix your life, make it work. Find all this, surrender, take what you can and make it better. The things you can't make better, allow them to be what they are, and find the simple, quiet acceptance, perhaps joy, of what that means. Done. Any questions? Because people got really upset last week when I said, get your life together. People really don't want to do that. They don't want to think they have to get their life together. They want to think they just have to accept it as it is. Which is, if you can do that, truly, if you can do that, great. I just never met anybody fully who did that. And I've met people who've awakened, by the way. I've met a fair number of awakened souls who have not gotten it all together, whose chakras are not fully opened. Really interesting. I'm not going to be in judgment of that, because maybe it doesn't matter, but it's really interesting. So this is an opportunity to get it all together, and if you don't ever have an awakening or an enlightenment, it won't matter, because you're an expanded, conscious, whole human being. Okay, Anne?
Is that how you define getting it all together, that your chakras
are all open, simultaneously flowing, and you're conscious of that. You're conscious of your heart working with your mind, your heart working with your sexuality, your gut servicing a higher purpose and a conscious, loving purpose, rather than just some kind of small-minded, egoistic expression. We're looking right now politically at the worst version of all of this, the very worst version. And if you want instruction, just read the newspaper. That's all you have to do. This is This is what it looks like in its worst expression. How do I counteract that inside? And it dawned on me in class today to love this person who's expressing this horrible stuff. To love him. To literally reach inside as best I can, and perhaps you can, and just get why this has developed in him and how the world has allowed this kind of thing to come together. We're not going to fix it exactly, but we can go inside and do a kind of healing, a way of dealing with it. It's not going to be fun, and the world is not going to be what, I mean, who knows what it will be? It's impossible to know. But there is a positive upside to all of this in that you will be informed of what the worst version of a human being can look like in power. That's a really important thing, because we have never seen it fully expressed before in our lifetime. We've seen it historically, but in our lifetime, it's right in front of us, broadcast all the time, with really smart people talking about it, and really emotional people talking about it, and gut-driven people parading around and holding signs. This is really valuable on some level. How's that all going to work? I have no clue. But I do know that we are being challenged, not just societally, but individually, to rise up to what needs to be done. And the way to find out is to go inside and get directives. This one might say, just stay still and be quiet and don't get caught up in it. It might say, grab a sign and go walk. I don't know what it will say, to me or to anybody else. But each one of us has to listen to our guidance system. Don't be overly critical of other people's guidance systems. And let this thing unfold. If people are in touch with this, they will act consciously. If they're not in touch with it, they'll act unconsciously. And unconscious activity will have impact on you, but you can navigate through it, whereas other people will just end up smashed against the rocks because they didn't have a navigational system. Is that the answer to that answer?
Yeah, the business of getting it together, all this death and rebirth, this is really unpleasant sometimes. And like, lately I've been having intense emotions, election and life and all that stuff. And, often we can kind of hold that in our awareness, but sometimes it feels like it gets stuck.
Absolutely.
And how we haven't to offer to...
I would just say sit with it. Sit with it.
Yeah.
You can't stay stuck, usually. If you sit and you go deep, or you ask for help, Rudi's key, ask for help to surrender is what he said, which means in a way to allow and accept. I can only tell you, as far as my experience of human life has been, everything changes. I have, since this election, gone through spaces I didn't know I had that really, really were frightening. Frightening not even to Bruce, because Bruce wasn't the key ingredient. It was frightening to the human race, to humanity itself. It was at the core of survival instinct. And I didn't know if I could deal with it. It was so painful. It was like I was feeling everybody's pain. And then it moved on. It moved on. It comes back sometimes, but it keeps moving on. And now when it comes in, I go, uh-huh, or you again, whatever. And I just go, okay. And you learn to deal with the thing you can't deal with as best you can. Sometimes it will come back bigger than anything you ever dreamt of, and sometimes it will be manageable. But it doesn't matter. It keeps changing and evolving. That's what happens for all of us. And we're on that journey together, so we can share it if we want to talk about it, or we have to find our own private way. But a lot of people are going to do this not well. You can already start to see people turning over cars and smashing things. Not a good approach from any perspective, but that goes on. And then there are people who create solidarity in their movement and marching. And then I read a thing today about people on the march who were not happy with the other marchers. So there's humanity again. So again, we can't change all of that, but we can moderate to some degree our relationship to it. And we can do it with more intelligence and more insight and more understanding by feeling the thing in us that says, this way, not that way. And when you touch that, it's real. It has the most unbelievable acknowledgement. And I don't know how to describe it. It's sensory. It's delicious. It's just such a, yes. Yeah, okay, right, okay. That's all it is. But it's not haphazard. It's not, I can't really hear it. What did it say? You know it. You know this. We all do. We all know when it speaks to us that way. And we always have. It's just we don't always pay attention because we have excuses. Tomorrow I'll do it. I become this obsessive walker. And I was telling Blanche today, well, at least my obsession is healthy. You know? Because you could have obsessions that are not. And a lot of the obsessions are excuses of why I can't. And where does that take you? Nowhere. And you end up in a life that was unlived and unexplored. You know, Rudi says a lot of people become so rigid in life that they create the very coffin that they're going to be buried in years before they're dead. It's not a way to live. Living is to be alive and go for it, and it's going to hurt, and things are going to fall away, but you won't even know the stuff that's falling away until you experience it, and a lot of that stuff that you experience isn't pleasant. They're elements of who you are, your fear zone, your doubt zone, all of that stuff has to show itself in order for you to go, okay, and then let it go. And that death is like a loss, because that fear thing in you was defining you for decades. And now it's gone. Who am I? The answer to that starts to come back. I am, period. Or I am this very moment. This very moment is everything. I honestly don't know anything beyond this moment. And right now, I am exchanging this with you, Mark. And that is unbelievably real to me. It'll be different in about a second. But powerful. That's how it is. That's reality. That's the only reality I know, and it may not be real either, but it doesn't matter because it's all I got. And it's all you've got right now. You know, we're on two sides of the coin, but really, it's one coin. Anybody else?
I'm not sure how to ask this question first, but I'll give it my best shot. What you were saying early on in your talk today about how people, I'll paraphrase you, I think, how people say, well, I'm behaving this way, but this isn't me, right? Or there's a bigger me, there's a higher me that I'm not behaving in accordance with the higher self. And as a fan of neuroscience, I know that sometimes my moods change depending on my neurotransmitters, depending on the hormones coursing through me, and I behave in ways that that's not me. How do you be with that, where you have a higher self that knows that, and then there's this body that takes you to other places?
There's a real part of you that forgives yourself for that. You know, I put on about 8 pounds when Trump started to move forward, and I've now taken it off, interestingly enough, because I've accepted Trump. But I really saw it happening, and I said, this is Trump weight. That's what it is. It's what my neurotransmitters did to overcome the enormous disturbance I was experiencing because he was there. I didn't get angry at myself, and I didn't start to go, you know, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? I get it. I know why I'm doing this. You know? And it was really fascinating to watch. What everyone has to do is sort of allow themselves to be whatever this complex reality is that we are. None of us understand it. None of us. It cannot be understood. We can get at it in little pieces. We can be scientific about it. We can put together pictures of what we think it is. But trust me, they're all very limited and momentary expressions of truth. The truth is not definable or containable at all. It's important to have all these things. It's important to have stories that show us how life can be led and what happens when you do the wrong thing or what happens when you do the noble thing, how love can be transcendent. We have stories that tell us this. We have science that tells us outcomes that can happen. But in truth, in the end, all of that is based on the particularity of our time and space and bodily mind and awareness. And remove these various conditions, your body, your mind, and time and space, those truths are gone. They have no meaning at all. They're very temporal, very much of this moment. Live them in this moment. Be part of this moment. That's all you can really do. And you can do it better when you're not interpreting it and when you're not interacting with it or resisting it or fighting. You just go, okay, thy will be done. It's amazing what takes place. And that's really kind of where spiritual, I hate the word spiritual now, but where whatever that kind of feeling, thinking allows you to be. It's not spiritual, it's human, it's real. We live the minuscule part of our potential being. And what you experience when you sit still is the flowering and the bigness of what it means to be human. Way beyond anything our normal schooling tells us. Even mystical teaching gives us a roadmap that I no longer think we can follow. It's a roadmap that's terrific to a point. And then even that, you have to let go of every map available, and all you can do is follow the instinct of your own navigational truth. And that will take you where you need to go, because it is really smart.
On meditation, astral meditation, where you're not really sitting quietly, you're going somewhere, does that work as well?
Do you do astral meditation?
Mm-hmm.
I've had astral projections way back when, in my early days, and they took me all over the place, and I was so enraptured by them and the idea that I could be out of my body and traveling around and be in other dimensions and all of that. But in the end, I always kept coming back to this. I always returned to this. And I realized this was a foundational space, and that was not. I would say, if you can meditate and work your consciousness in that space, great, do it. You know, I mean, I would do things like I remember flying off way past the moon and out toward Mars. And I was really going, and then I looked back at the Earth, and it had gotten so small I couldn't distinguish it from the stars, and I got really scared. I said, I can keep going. I can go into infinity and beyond, you know, but did I want to? And everything in me said, I do not want to. You know, I came back into my body on the Earth, and I worked from being on the Earth, because that journey didn't make sense to me. I didn't know what would I gain by going into, you know, infinite time and space. I gained a lot by being here. And I'm aware of infinite time and space as part of my being. I'm very aware of astral reality, if you will, but it's all happening here and now. It's all part of this. If you want to play in the astral realm, it's very satisfying. You know, I've talked to people who deal with lucid dreaming, and which I used to do, and they're very similar. Astral travel and lucid dreaming are very similar. But a lot of people in the lucid dreaming community really didn't want to be here. They wanted to be in a world where they can create whatever they wanted, and they were sometimes good at it, but they couldn't function here. What's the value of that? What's the value of being off in another land when your body, mind, existence, life dependency is rooted here? This is the work. This is the work. Out there is just, you know, I'm a writer, so I used to live in fantasy lands and dramas and lives of other people, but I would come back every day. I'd have to have breakfast, you know, I'd have to diaper the kids, you know, I'd have to take care of stuff. That's reality to me. The other is like, I love it, I love being out there, you know, I love reading, I love watching movies, but this is where we live. That's what I would say. Anyone else? Is this still recording, or is it long gone?
No, it's recording.
Huh.
Good thing.
Long talk. Okay, so we're here next week, post Disneyland. I'll have, I don't know what that's going to be. I mean, I do. It's really interesting. I do know what it's going to be. It's going to be wonderful and not wonderful. Because I know all the, you know, I know my grandchildren, and I know what they're going to get excited about. And I don't want to go take a nap. You have to go take a nap. It's going to be all of that stuff. And I'm finally old enough to know that. So I'm going to be the first one to volunteer to take Elijah back for a nap. Everybody else can go walk around. I will do that. And then Blanche said, "No, I'm fighting you on that one. I want to go back and take a nap." You know, so we're all going to have our. It's going to be what life always is, a balance or an imbalance, depending upon where you're at, between what is good and what is not good, what is easy, what is not easy, what is joyful, what is not joyful. Trust me, the minute you accept that as what is real, the drama is over. You just live with what is. It's a great way to go. And on that, I'll stop. Thank you guys for coming. Truly appreciate it.